What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Dunk Talk Podcast, episode 46. My name is Dylan Haugen, 5'11", 17-year-old dunker from Minnesota, and today I'm here with my co-host Hunter, and Donovan is back. So, guys, introduce yourself, and we'll get to the topic.
Yeah, guys, I'm Hunter Castona, 6'1" dunker from Wisconsin, and we have a very special guest and well known on the podcast, Donovan. So, Donovan, if you want to introduce yourself, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again. 6'4" dunker, Donovan Hawkins. Let's get to it.
Yes, sir, guys. So today we're going to be going over a topic that is talked about quite often, and that is genetics. Do they matter? Yeah, just everything about them. So I guess we'll just start off with our personal experiences, and kind of like what our family is like. So I would say my genetics are definitely pretty good. I mean, when we look at it, they're not like, Olympian genetics, but they are definitely above average. Um, both my parents played sports. I don't know of anyone in my family who was like super good jumper back when they were younger. But I mean, obviously, just like by my build and kind of just, I mean, I've definitely been like, I would consider myself naturally athletic, I guess. Not like, again, like Olympian level or anything like that, but definitely like solid genetics for jumping. But yeah, Hunter, let's hear it.
Yeah, so I mean, genetics isn't too crazy. I mean, my dad wasn't really, I mean, he could dunk, but like it was like rim grazers, nothing crazy. And he also didn't like train for it. I mean, he played volleyball, so I think that's kind of where he got his stuff. I don't think he ever really trained, but so he played a little bit of volleyball. Mom didn't play sports at all. And then my grandpa, he was actually a track athlete, and I don't know if this he still has a school record, but he had one of the school records for I think for sprinting or something. So I'm pretty sure it's broken now, with all the insane athletes now. But at the time, he had it for what was that, like 30, maybe 40 years, something like that, or whatever it was. So I mean, I haven't talked to him too much about what he did in high school. I just know he was a track athlete and that he had that, but I mean, nothing really else too crazy in the family. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's really nothing else I can think. I mean, my cousin, he was a really good athlete. Nothing too crazy either. He could dunk. I mean, he's 6'3", but again, there's nothing like where it's like shouting out like, "Oh my gosh, there's he has a lot of genetics in his family." It was kind of mediocre, but a lot of it's just gone towards training. But yeah.
Donovan, let's go.
Yep. I know my hold on, my my computer froze. But you guys hear me? Oh yeah. Um, yeah, I mean everyone in my family, like on both sides, for multiple generations played basketball, but no one was like crazy good or anything. So that's all that I know too. I don't know like anyone else's like genetics. So grandpa did, dad did, uncles did, mom did, grandma did, aunts did. Like everyone played basketball, but yeah, I'm not sure.
Your dad dunking back in the day?
He could do a like rim grazer, yeah.
Let's go. Yeah. So I think again, like we just were talking about, I think a lot of people kind of just take it and just say like, oh well, genetics, are all that matters. Like if you don't have good genetics, you're screwed, and if you have good genetics, then that's it. Like, and I think that it's been pretty recent now that people are just like starting to train and like kind of just forget your genetics. Like even if your genetic peak is just going to be like a one-hander, then like that's still good, above average. So yeah, I think that is something that's definitely changed. Like if any of our parents or our family members like trained the way that we did and got the amount of jumps that we did, maybe they would have been better. Maybe they would have been the same. But I think that's really just what it comes down to is just like um, what that training is kind of like can help you reach your genetic ceiling. But what do you guys think about like what's more important, like training or just your genetics in general?
I would say, I mean, definitely training just from what we've seen, from dunkers and just athletes in general. I mean, you can still have really bad genetics and still get really, really good at whatever you're doing, whether it be jumping, sprinting, whatever. So I think the genetic ceiling is definitely a factor, but it's not everything. It kind of just puts you at where you can be at for like basically without training, but then your training can go past that. Um, and I mean, we've seen it with Isaiah. I mean, Jordan, I think he is. pretty good genetics in his family. I mean, his brothers, you could kind of see they have kind of stupid bounce as well. Not
Yeah.
obviously Jordan level, but I
I
mean,
think
he's still,
Jordan's biggest thing is just like injury recovery. Like he's just like
yeah,
immune to everything, like knee pain.
yeah.
But he obviously still
Again,
does struggle with a lot. But
yeah, I don't know what his dad really did in high school or what kind of athlete he was, but again, a lot of it's been training. You see Isaiah, his has been training. I mean, he was dunking kind of like how every other dunker was starting out. I think it was like 15, 16 years old. I mean, he kind of he sprouted up a little bit earlier than a lot of other dunkers have. Um, but I mean, just the training in general. I mean, he went from having like a 40, I think it was like a 47, 48 invert, and he didn't progress at all for like 2 years. And then all of a sudden he shot up to 50, 50.5. And then obviously now he's at a way more consistent basis, of getting to that like 48 plus every single session now. So training is definitely, I think, more important. Genetic ceiling is still important, but I think that you can still do very, very well if you're just a consistent at training and you know exactly what you're doing too. That's another big thing that people have to realize, is that you have to know what you're doing as well. You can't just do random stuff and expect to kind of progress. That's why there's coaches. That's why there's research and stuff like that. You just have to do your own research at the end of the day. Even if you do have a coach and everything like that, you still want to know what you're doing too. It's not like you're just gonna go do it and just do it. You got to know what you're doing too, and how your body reacts. But yeah, let's hear what Donovan has to say.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with everything you said. I think training's the most important thing besides genetics. Genetics just like it's like a good add-on. It's like a good in addition to. That's what it is. Also, I didn't study kinesiology or anything with exercise science in school, so I'm not necessarily qualified to speak on it. But I'm of the opposite way almost like so far that training's the one thing that really matters because there's just not a big enough sample size like to tell if genetics matter enough for like jumping because no one really does it unless you're a track athlete or something like no one trains for jumping. So how would you know if genetics really matter? Like you could take, let's say, just an average like guy who was just born, right? And if you train him from the time he was 10 and he was jumping every day 5 times a week, my guess is regardless of his genetics, he'll jump 40 plus easy when he's older. So it's like I'm not sure most people will like even give it a try at all.
yeah, I 100% agree with that. I know me and Hunter have talked about it in the past as well. But like depending on when you're starting your dunk career or whatever, or you're, just starting to train for dunking, it really doesn't matter what your genetic ceiling is because no matter what, like that's just what it is. Like if your genetic ceiling is, let's just say 40, which I highly doubt it is because I think most people can jump over 40 if they're even just slightly above average. Or if your genetic ceiling is 50, like you still have the opportunity to train for something and progress towards something. And dunking is so like it's just it's very trackable. It's very easy to like see like what the next step is. So it's just like no matter what, you just want to like get that extra inch or get that extra half inch and just like continue progressing forward. So in my opinion, it doesn't really matter what your genetic ceiling is. Like I've told Tunja this in the past, like maybe I only jump 46. It doesn't really matter to me. Like at some point I just want to reach whatever my genetic ceiling is and I just want to do whatever dunks are possible at that genetic ceiling. So yeah, but like you said, I think that's another huge thing is people just kind of are like, oh, well, I probably can't do it. And it's like, well, if you actually jumped from the time that you were super young, that changes your genetic ceiling. Like if your genetic ceiling, if you are jumping every day at 10, 11, 12, 13, is different than your genetic ceiling if you start jump training at like 20. And yeah, I don't know the full extent of it because, like Donovan said, like not entirely qualified to speak on like the kinesiology and actual exercise science side of things. But yeah, from what I've seen with other people, I'd say that that just makes sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, another thing is, if you look at a lot of the elite guys, not even just elite guys, but the guys in the community of the dunk community, a lot of them started jumping very, very young. And those are the guys that are really, really good at dunking, but also are jumping the highest as well. Like Donovan, he played hockey, but he still low rimmed a ton, even when he was a little bit younger too. Um, And you look at Jordan, you can go back to, I don't know if he has still his videos up, but he was doing crazy dunks at on 8 feet at like 16 or whatever. These guys really never were genetic freaks. They worked for what they have, and it took years too. It's not like they could just walk in the gym one day and then they could just jump out the gym. No, they took 10 plus years basically to just get to where they're at, for a 50-inch vertical and whatnot. So that's another thing that people also don't realize is that a lot of the elite guys and just guys in the dunk community that like to jump a lot and that are really, really good, they have been jumping since they were really, really young. And like Dylan said, that can increase your genetic ceiling by a ton just because you're getting those reps, you're getting those fibers all just memorized from jumping. And that's basically why they're so good at jumping. And then that's why their technique is so good as well, just from those reps and reps and reps of just low rimming and having fun. I mean, like a lot of the guys never really thought probably this was going to be their career or anything like that. They're just doing it for fun because they liked it. And now they made a living off of it and they're one of the best in the world.
Yeah, so there was someone on my Instagram live yesterday. He said he was new to my page and he asked a question that I've gotten a lot. And it just kind of goes to like what you guys' last podcast was on about like myths. And then it kind of combines with, with genetics. He asked what I started at for my vert. And that's like a misconception that like people think that like I just came out the womb like dunking. Like, what, dude? Like, what? Like, and I explained to him, I was like, what do you have to like tell me what you mean by what my vert started at? Like, because when I was 6, I was jumping like 2 inches, right? Like, what do you mean? What did my vert start at? I think a lot of people see like basketball players. I can give a couple examples like Jim McGavich or like Trey Parker, and they're like, oh, they must have just been dunking when they were like 11. Like the first time they tried, they did. Like, no, dude. Like. They probably couldn't even touch net when they were like 12. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you mean? Like, you have to build up to it. So, genetics, I think they play a lot less of a role than people think they do. Like, honestly, like a minute role, like very small role, right? It's like I said, it's like an addition to your training.
No, yeah, totally. And that leads into what I was actually just gonna say. So you can both call me out if you think I'm wrong, by the way. But to, honestly, like if we're thinking about best jumpers in the world, like 50 inches is like the standard. Like if you want to be like the best, like 50 is just kind of like what we've seen as like once you get to 50, it's really hard to get past that, and it's almost impossible to get to 50. So that's just kind of like what we'll go with. Like if we think of the dunkers that we all think of as like super genetically gifted, I mean, I'm trying to think of people who I would even say like if you really think about it, there hasn't been anyone who has just like not trained and just casually got to 50 basically. I mean, I'm trying to think of examples like Gideon is one of them who I've seen who I dunk with doesn't, lift at all, but he jumps like 46. But like what other ones would you guys even
Yes.
say?
I think Dylan
So,
McCarthy. That's the one that comes to mind a little bit. I mean, he does a little bit of training, but it's not
All
like
right.
to the extent of like what everybody else was
Yeah.
lifting does. So I mean, I think he might be a little bit of an outlier, but I don't think that's all
Oh,
just
not a
genetics.
little bit.
Yeah. I'm just saying like
yeah.
He's got the
in the grand scheme of like
oh,
training wise. I mean, again, I don't
So,
really know how he does everything and what led up to that, but from what we've heard on the podcast, I mean, he doesn't do the traditional
I
lifting
would
that everybody else does.
I think he jumped a lot, and then his lifting now is just, I don't even know. It's pretty dumb. But
yeah. So when Isaiah was with me, we were talking about it, and me and him both don't think it's possible like naturally, and I don't know, like for the foreseeable future. We don't think it's possible for anyone to have a 50 just by jumping. That's impossible. No one can just do that.
Anthony
Um,
Height,
Anthony Height. Well, no, first of all, he said he played football in high school, so he did weight train. So already
okay, yeah,
disqualified.
and
If you
he does
touch a
lift a
weight,
lot too.
if you
He
touch a
did tell
weight,
us
you're
that.
already that doesn't matter
I
anymore.
like it.
But
Yeah,
like also a lot of people think, of guys. What Dylan McCarthy, what he test?
he's tested 49,
Was it
On the red,
49
white,
or
and blue
49 and
vert
a
tech
half?
or the red and black
49.
one?
That was 49.
Vert
Okay.
vert trainer.
Vert trainer. Was it measured and was his standing reach measured correctly?
I have no idea,
Yeah,
but
So
he
if we
didn't
don't know
know
both
too.
those things,
I mean, look at him jump, bro.
true. Look, I mean, yeah,
I
look
would
at him jump.
say
But
I would
so what I
say
was
he's at
gonna say
least
is
48. So
fine, 48. But so when you look at like guys like that, like that's like one example, right? But no one's gonna get to the upper echelon. Like you said, getting to 50 is like it's like almost impossible. So no one's gonna get there by not training. And him saying he only does calf raises and jumps 7 days a week, it's kind of weird because
Well,
like
he does strength train, but it's like he does everything by like 20 reps and stuff. So it's just
yeah,
like
so exactly.
super
So then
like
there you go. So then he's
weird
he's
training.
trained. Like that matters. Like that stuff counts. So he's trained. So there you go. Again,
He does
disqualified.
it every day.
Like, yeah,
Doesn't
so
make
like
any sense.
people, you can't just get to 50 by not training. Like no one ever will in the foreseeable future. Like you just can't do that. That's impossible. So that's kind of like the upper echelons you have to
Yeah,
train.
that's exactly what I was saying. It's like when you look at if we want to like think about like truly, truly elite, we think about 50, right? Like that's like the best basically. And just like you just said, there's been nobody. Like when you think about the people that jumped high, like T-Dub, Dylan, Anthony Height, like those guys who are like have like minimal jump training, it's like they still did a little bit, first of all, and also they never hit 50, which is like a very interesting trend. So it's like, you have to think about that, but then you also have to consider you can't always consider outliers. Like again, like yeah, like those people, like you can't even really count them to be honest, just because of how gifted they truly are. But at the same time, like we're saying, there is no shot that they would have ever gotten to where they are, even are right now, if they wouldn't have jumped a ton as a kid and also, done a few of them do a little bit of lifting. So that's what I was saying is like when you think about, getting to 40, like it's a little bit different than getting to 50. So when you think about getting to 50, you have to kind of consider those guys and be like, well, nobody has hit 50 that doesn't know what they're doing. So I would say there's a very clear trend there. So like, yeah, maybe like if you just want to get to like a 35, like yeah, but when we consider like truly elite genetics, we'd be talking about like 45 plus, no training. And even those people again aren't necessarily getting to like number one in vertical. So, yeah. I think one thing that's really funny is people that like jump really high and have like horrible technique just like naturally. Like that's one thing that just cracks me up, bro. I don't even know like how that happens and then like also whatever it's called. Like if a different technique would be like better for them or not. Because like I've talked to like Travis and Tom about it, and like they jump super high, and yet their technique is a little bit different. So
Yeah, John mentioned that they used to think that like there was a right way to jump, and it was like have a long penultimate, strong block foot. But yeah, after seeing guys like that who have bad form, I think he they updated their saying as to whatever works for you, as long as you're doing like three things, like consistently building speed in your approach, lowering yourself throughout the approach, and then taking off. Right, I think those are the only things that really matter. Even though a lot of people, you do see like a trend with good jumpers, right, of having proper form, but for if your form's different, I don't think it matters too much.
no,
Yeah, I mean,
yes,
I think the trend of like the people that have the long penultimate and whatever, their speed's really good. Obviously, that's like where you want to be, and that's like where we see a lot of the guys that are really elite. But then there's the guys like we see Travis, Tom, like those guys have really, really short penultimates, but it works for them because they've been doing it for that long and they didn't change anything for it, which they don't need to because they jump extremely high too, which what does Tom have like what, a 48 or something?
yeah, at
Something like
least.
that? Yeah, so and he is a I mean both him and Travis are very, very similar. They're both opposite plants though, but they're very, very similar in how they jump. That's very short. I mean, they're very quick off the ground though. Once they hit that block foot, I mean, they're getting up very, very quickly. Um, that's one thing I'll say as well. Just being quick off of from your penultimate step to your block foot, like getting off the ground very, very quickly. That's also another um trend that I've seen that is correlates to how high you jump as well. Um, I mean, I don't know if John and I'm pretty sure John and Isaiah have done something on that as well. Like where I think they just posted a video on Donovan that was like I don't know if did they actually like time that or was that just like what they actually did time that?
Yeah, yeah, they time that, yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, what was it? It was like point two
0.25.
five yeah,
Yeah.
0.25 seconds by the time was it block foot? Once your block foot
Blockfoot, yeah.
touched? Yeah, so once his block foot touched, he was off the ground in 0.25 seconds. That's a ridiculous amount of time. And that's what you see with a lot of the elite jumpers is that they're getting off the ground very, very quickly and they also have a lot of speed. Um, like and then you can see like bodybuilders though that have like really, really crappy form and they're like not really running into it, but they can still jump not high, but like I mean they can still jump decently well just because of how strong they are. So that's obviously another thing is just getting really strong. Which obviously that's what's coming from training. But I mean, like Donovan said, there's not really a right way to jump, which there we thought there was, but from seeing all these outliers and like how high people are jumping with bad technique, I think it's just however you feel comfortable. And as long as you're doing that consistently over time, I don't see a reason why you can't jump higher with bad form. Obviously, you want to have the picture perfect form, but again, it is not needed.
Yeah. It is a dangerous thing to say because I do think some people will take that and just be like, "Oh, well, then I don't need to work on it at all." Like that's not necessarily the case. It's just like again, looking at kind of the trends that like the top people have and then trying to apply that. And I know Kilgannon talks about this all the time. Like he never really worked on his jump technique, and to be honest, I maybe did like once ever. It's never really something that you have to think about if you're just having fun and low rimming as a kid or anything like that. So I think that's the main thing is as long as you're getting like a bunch of jump reps, then your body will literally like teach itself how to jump properly, especially when you like watch dunkers all the time. Like when I was a kid, that's probably what led to my technique being like pretty decent today is just like watching people and then going out and then just like trying to do those things. And then I'm just like subconsciously like slowly recreating and learning how to like apply those patterns and like use them to jump high. So I think that was yeah, that's the main thing. Is just as long as you're jumping a lot, you'll learn how to jump properly. So it's not really anything to think too much about. But yeah, I know Donovan said that it is impossible for someone to jump 50 without any proper training. But if we were to try to create someone, like just like create a perfect jumper genetically, what traits would you guys look for in that jumper? Go like build wise, anything.
Yeah, yeah. You would want to have oh, you'd want to have long levers. So someone who has someone who has really long legs or and really long arms or one or the other. So that way, so the longer your levers are, the more force you can apply over them, right? So you're looking for someone who has like a relatively small torso and longer legs, someone who's leaner naturally, and someone who's decently tall.
I have
There
all those things except I'm short, so
you
that
go.
sucks. What about like muscle fibers and stuff? Like I know like the difference between fast and slow twitch, but at the same time I don't really know anything. So
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I
As
mean,
many as you can. Just the
yeah,
more you can recruit for type 2, the better.
yeah. That's what I was gonna say. Type 2, I know for sure, but again, I don't know all the specifics on everything, but I just know that that was one of the things. And would you say something about tendons as well with stiff tendons?
Yeah, that's kind of it's hard though because like 1 foot jumpers you have to have really stiff tendons, but 2 foot jumpers you have to have a nice balance because you
Yeah.
have it's more strength
yeah,
based.
be
So
like
it's
too
hard, yeah.
stiff, otherwise you won't be able
Yeah,
to
exactly.
stretch them
Stiff but not
properly.
too stiff. Yeah.
Okay. Trying to think
Yeah,
what else there is. Blanking right now.
and lower them since they were 5.
Yeah, long
Yeah.
since they were 5. Yeah, literally. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, as to like reaching your genetic ceiling, I mean, we obviously all have kind of done, I guess, what we're probably gonna say. But what would you guys say is kind of like what you would do if you wanted, or like how you would, what you would tell someone to do if you wanted them to reach their genetic ceiling, starting at, we'll just say age 10. Hunter, you can go first.
I mean, obviously the first thing is just jump a lot. I mean, that's what we've always said. I mean, that's what we all have done, and it obviously trends to jumping higher. That's one thing. Another thing I would say is to have variety in sports. So play as many different sports as you can, not just jumping. But just get a variety because that's going to put you in different positions on the field or court or whatever, and that's just going to recruit more different scenarios that your body's able to adapt to. So if you're able to do different things over time, your body's able to adapt over a lot of different things rather than just sticking to one thing. Obviously, the most important thing I would say would be jumping or some type of jumping sport. But again, just getting different things, play baseball, football, basketball, volleyball. I mean, you can even do something like swimming, Just do a lot of different things, be outside, be a kid, just have fun. I mean, that's kind of like the different things. I mean, I don't know about like the whole training thing. I don't know if like training at a young age will benefit. I know that it's not gonna like stunt your growth or anything, but I don't know if that's really gonna like if you want to hind it into technique and just basically get the best technique in the weight room. I don't know if that's gonna apply anything to the future, if that's gonna benefit or anything like that. I mean, it should just because you're getting technique down, but I don't know if like heavy lifting will really do anything or the strength training that we kind of do. I don't know how young you would have to do that for it to work or for not to work. So, but those are kind of like the different things I would say.
Yeah, I know. I talked to John and Ben about it before. It's called like yeah, like what Hunter is saying is called long-term athletic development. And what he's saying about weight room stuff is we're not sure like how you should go about how early you should start weight training. Because you can look at someone like Dylan. Dylan, when's the first time you started lifting with how jump X?
I did stuff before that, but I started with jump X right before turning 16.
All right, so 15. So Dylan's been jumping since you were like, well, like 12, 11, whatever, like consistently.
Yeah, probably 11.
11, and then you started weight training when he was 15. But we're not sure which one is
Started
more
started
beneficial. Oh,
started weight training structuredly when I was 15. I was probably doing it
or
since I was
well,
like
what did you do like 3 times a week
I
structured?
I in the summers, yeah, like when I wasn't in basketball season, I
I
did.
think
When I was
I'd
like
probably I'd count that. So how old were you then?
12 or 13.
Oh man, so you started jumping consistently at 11, been doing so since, and then been lifting decently consistently since you were like 12 or 13. And you
Yeah.
look at someone like myself who didn't lift a weight for the first time until I was 20. So we don't know which one's like better actually for like and the reason being is do you want to reach your absolute genetic limit first and then start applying outside factors, or do you want to apply like strength factors earlier and then that will help you reach higher? We're not sure which will do what, so I guess we'll have
Yeah,
to see what
because
happens
I'm
there.
kind of on the same way as you, Donovan. I didn't start like I did. I wasn't. I would say I wasn't consistent with lifting. Like I did a lifting class in high school. I did basketball lifting, but we all know that's not really anything. That's like once a week, if anything. But when I started structured training, I started with THP. I would say that was when I was either 19 or 20, I think, something like that. And then I also did like kind of sport specific training as well. A lot of balance stuff, a lot of ankle mobility, a lot of different stuff like that when I was like 15 to 17, I would say. So I did a lot of that stuff. So I don't know if that obviously, I'm guessing that helped a little bit too, but I wasn't lifting heavy at that time either. I mean, I was still jumping. I was obviously in basketball too, but I was always trying to dunk. When I forget my first dunk up until now, I've been dunking consistently every single week, if you will, um, on like a 10-foot rim, basically. Um, but I didn't do any just type of like structured strength training until I was like 19 or 20. So I'm kind of on the same way with Donovan. So yeah, I don't really know what like the right answer would be. And obviously the more qualified guys like John, Isaiah, Ben, they obviously said that from what Donovan said that they don't really know exactly yet. Obviously they probably have an idea, but again, it's just there's hasn't I don't think there's been enough of those different outliers and stuff like that that have come through to see which one is, or just I would say just studies that have come through that just you've seen throughout the years that have um done one or the other. So
What do you mean by like reach your genetic potential first or whatever?
Like so technically I guess I didn't milk it long enough, so you can always be better with it, but I would say I never squatted, deadlifted, or cleaned. I mean, I did like body weight stuff, but that doesn't even count at all. That doesn't count at all. But yeah, I didn't do any of that until the time I was 20. So I was just jumping, and by just jumping, I probably reached about a 45 or 46 inch vertical. So I don't know if I could have gone further. Like, what if I could have got 47 out of that, right? And then I started training. That's what I mean though. Like I was at probably 45, 46 for like a year or two, just stuck there. But and then I started training. So that's what I meant by like going the absolute most before training.
Oh, okay. So just like the difference between jumping until it doesn't benefit you anymore, or
Exactly. Yeah, jumping until you don't,
okay.
it doesn't help anymore. Then
What
you have to
did
add training.
what did Isaiah do? Because I know he like
No,
lifted
Isaiah's
I
been
don't.
structured lifting since he was like 14.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Then I'm not worried anymore.
No, yeah,
For a
no,
second, I
yeah.
thought you were like, there's a chance that you drop off and you're good
No,
to
no,
go.
no, no. No, I wasn't saying that. Yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
yeah. No, I've always wondered that though. Like, is it possible to like start too young? But honestly, I wouldn't say so. I mean, if I always tell people like if you're young, the like least risky thing you can do is just start jumping because it doesn't take that much time. And the biggest thing is just like you just gotta enjoy it. Like if you don't enjoy it, it's not gonna matter. But if you truly enjoy jumping and you go out and lower him for whether it's 20 minutes a day, um, I would encourage you to go for even more than that if you can. But as long as you're staying healthy and you're jumping, I'd say it's great. Again, we don't really know when the proper age is to start like structured weightlifting, but if you can just do things like learn how to clean and squat, I would say that that is great to start at least. I mean, you're definitely, if you do want to be good, I would just assume that you're gonna have to squat and clean eventually. So I would just start learning that stuff now. It's not that hard. But yeah, I mean, that's really it. Just start jumping as soon as you can, like Hunter said. Um, do as many sports as you can. You'll learn jump technique naturally if you just do it a lot. And yeah,
And I would say one other thing is just get really, really strong. I mean that's another trend. Obviously, we've been saying, but you look at Donovan, Isaiah, Tony Crosby, Jordan. You look at all those guys; they're squatting very, very heavy, deadlifting heavy, power cleaning heavy. They're doing. Donovan, do you know what? Is it two times your body weight or like two and a half or something like that? Where it's like where you're at like the really, really elite level. I don't know
Yeah,
exactly what it is.
two times and then 2.5 is like crazy.
Okay, so if you look at all those guys, they are most likely at two or if not two and a half times their body weight on not I wouldn't say all their lifts, but most of their lifts that they're doing, they're over that. And that's another thing that I would say is very, very important is just getting strong in the weight room. Once obviously, jumping isn't doing anything for you, but that's definitely another thing is just getting really, really strong because that's another thing is just we've seen from a very, very elite jumpers.
yeah, I know Donovan mentioned the last episode that we did. One of the myths that we did was actually like all pro dunkers have like really good genetics or something along those lines. And we talked about kind of how we me and Hunter basically decided that Isaiah, like I know Isaiah said it himself, like he does not have like that crazy of genetics. If anything, they're like middle of the road. So I think like he's the perfect example of like if you train, you're gonna get there. So Donovan, just kind of talk about like, you know, what you would say if someone just said like, oh, all pro dunkers have the best genetics in the world.
It's really simple. I mean, like you said, Isaiah's a perfect example, so I can give someone as an example, but also, I mean, I can just use firsthand experience. I mean, I probably just worked harder than you, so I mean, I don't know what you want me to tell you. I've been jumping for over 6 years straight consistently. I guarantee if you say I have good genetics, you probably have been jumping for a year or less, or even 2 years or less, or even 3 years or less. You know what I'm saying? Like it takes so much time. That's something people don't realize is it takes so long. Um, yeah, like people they just want to attribute it to one thing and just say, oh, because they don't want to work hard. Oh, it's just genetics. It's fine. Like, sorry, my bad. No, it's like you have to put in the work, right? Um, again, I John thinks differently than me, and he does know more, but I don't think genetics play like dude. The role they play is so small because like Isaiah, like he, like you said, maybe middle of the road, like at best. Like,
Yeah.
and look at
I
him.
mean, I would say like there are some people though that like you just look at them and you're like, yeah, their genetics are really bad. So it's like I do think there definitely are some cases, but if we're just talking about like if you're watching this podcast, chances are you're into dunking, and chances are if you're into dunking, you enjoy dunking, and chances are if you enjoy dunking, you have at least slightly above average genetics because dunking in general is just like not something that, many people enjoy if they're just like really unathletic. And I'm not saying that like those people can't enjoy it, but just generally the people that are like at least a little bit gifted or average at least are gonna enjoy it more. So I think like in those situations, yeah, I would agree with you. Like it doesn't really matter that much as long as you're training. I know we've said this a ton today, but again, I just want you guys to understand if you are not jumping, your genetics, your strength training, none of it matters. Like, that is the only thing that is like a necessity. Strength training isn't even a necessity just to like jump decently high. It is definitely very important, and I would encourage all of you to do it. But if you're like, "Nah, I don't want to do that," at least jump. At least jump once a week. That's really all you need to do. To reach your genetic peak, that's not the case. You're definitely probably going to need to do some strength training or something. But again, like Donovan said, if you think that, you deserve it right now, you probably haven't jumped enough. And there are guys who have.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask a bunch of the dunkers in the community for like tips or best workout to do for jumping higher or just jumping in general, the main thing is they're going to say is to just jump. If you want to get better at jumping, you have to jump. You have to do what you want to do to get better at it.
Yeah,
You're not going to get better if you
There
don't
is
jump.
no there is
there,
no
there
secret exercise. Try
it
it
just
out.
makes
No.
no sense. Like it's so counterintuitive with specifically jumping. It's the only thing in the world why I find like people have a struggle with this. They're like, oh, but like, how do you jump so? I'm like, I jump. They're like, really? Like, yeah, what do you mean really? Like, if you want to get better at Call of Duty, what do? You go play Call of Duty every day. If you want to get better at, well, like bench press, what do? You bench press 5 times a week. Like, what do you mean? Like, really? Like, they're so shocked. Like, it's like the craziest thing to
Exactly.
them. Like, anything in life, if you want to get better at it, you do it more. So why would it not apply to jumping?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well said. Well, that wraps up this episode, guys. If you're new, make sure to subscribe or whatever. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one. Peace out.